guest speaking tonight from Code Green Community. Boy, they're doing a great job, and I'll give an introduction right before we bring them up. We're really pleased to have them tonight. We also will have our new calendar coming out. We'll go through that as well. But I want to just touch on very slightly that we have been very blessed in this company. We've had a lot of interest internationally. Pakistan, India, Mexico, Canada, all over the world wanting to know how to grow sustainable soils and food. Why? Because in reality, we know that we have a fragile system. We have 3 days supply of food. It used to be about 45 years ago, 3 months of food. Now we're down to 3 days. If you're in the city, you're out of luck. If you're country people like we are, you can grow your own. If you're urban people, we'll teach you how to grow. So there's not enough clean water. There's not enough good food. Most of our cancers now, they're streaming right back to not enough nutrient in our food, not enough minerals in our food. So one of our missions here at Greenwell Path is to teach as many people as we can in a short amount of time, because we're all kind of put together to do that here. And I've had the privilege to be invited to join Rotary. Terry, stand up. This is Terry Weaver. She's a wonderful person in the community, and she really gets out there and tells people. She's a great networker. If you want a networker on your side, there's Terry Weaver. Just make sure you get to know her. She's been a real good friend to me through the Rotary and through networking through the community here. And one of the things that we're going to be working is internationally, also with the Rotary Club, and teaching people in Haiti the value of food and clean water, and teaching them how to grow sustainable, build the soil up where it needs to be. So, with that said, we also have J.B. Williams going to be talking tonight right after me, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll have Eric and Stacey come up. I'll briefly go over our classes coming up so that you can put this in your memory bank. If you don't have our information sent to you on a weekly basis about the upcoming classes, let us know. Put it up there. Do you see where, wave your hand up. Okay, you see that podium is? Just go ahead and sign your name with your email address, and we'll make sure that you get a blast out to our upcoming classes. March 3rd, Gina Cavallero and Tanya Peck from the Green Acre Aquaponics Farm. They'll be talking about how to grow aqua foods and fish through aquaponic gardens. They'll teach eco-friendly ways. Thanks, Carson. I think we should have had a dry run before we did this. How to harvest and grow your own tilapia and your own vegetables through aquaponic methods. Bill Sellers, the president of the Cattlemen's Association, Hernando chapter, and also he's part of the state chapter. He'll be here talking about the advantages of being part of the Cattlemen's Association, what's going on with the youth through the Cattlemen's Association, and upcoming agenda. And Paul Bocard, he's a farmer and entrepreneur. He's going to be talking about growing and harvesting moringa, the wonderful tree. Has anybody ever heard of that? Okay. There's a lot of benefits to moringa. They'll talk about that. Talk about highly mineralized food. This is one of the ways to do it. A very fast-growing food source and oil source. So we'll talk about that and harvesting and how to grow it. Paul Hawk, a good friend of Ray Nielsen's and Sherry Nielsen's. He's a mechanical engineer and a professional engineer with 37 years experience in electrical power. He's going to be talking about biofuels in the industry and upcoming, and what's going on currently and where we're at in future trends. So that'll be an interesting class as well. Jane Maxwell, Composting Your Garden. She'll be talking about composting. That'll be at the end of the month on March 31st. It's very necessary to compost. That's going to build micronutrients into your soil, adding worms, building beneficial fungus, all the good things that are starting at your compost pile. That's how you start building your soil. And of course with Green World Pack products. How to do a plug too. So, Bishop, would you like to come on up? This is Bishop Morrow, and he's going to be talking about Good Samaritan Church. He's going to give a quick synopsis of what the good works that they're doing through community.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bishop Douglas Morrow, and I have with me, I think most of you met my brother Clarence. My other brother Fred is also in the audience back there. We're the Good Samaritan Christian Fellowship Church out in Munden Hill. And what we are doing, we have the farm starting off the WPA road, and the farm is a hydroponic farm. And the mission of the farm is we are to grow vegetables and herbs and other things hydroponically as well as organically. And what we're doing, we are endeavoring to provide a job for folk that have been formerly incarcerated, but they get out of jail, and more times than not, they can't find employment. So what we're going to do for the non-violent former offenders is provide a way for them to get back into mainstream society. And by doing that, we'll have a job, a transition job for them, so that we'll teach them how to grow hydroponically and organically, as well as other methods in the farming area. And what our main theme is using the farm and growing off the grid as well. We're going to have water harvesting on the farm, whereby we have cisterns and capturing water out of the greenhouse, and solar panels as well, providing energy for the greenhouse operation as well, and the irrigation system. So we'll be teaching all those techniques. We've been in the process of getting information, getting contacts about 3 years now, and we have the property already identified. We're clearing the property, and we are just about ready to go. And once we get started, we'll be planting the various vegetables and herbs and, to support our community. And it's a community development program, and we are looking forward to kind of networking with Green World here, because they're doing excellent work here. That's why we're back. We met Ray some time ago there, and we're steady trying to get the farm going. But we're looking forward to doing more in our community for grow locally, for local consumption, thereby providing local jobs as well for those that's transitioning from lockup back into mainstream society. So we'll be having more to say about it at a later date, but we thank God for what we have heard from here, the things that we've heard in relationship to what's going to be coming up. It seems like a lot of information that's being put out right up on our nose. We're connecting with this information. There's a vast amount of information locally, and I understand that there's more things that can be done. So we want to do our part to help our community and for upward mobility in our community for our citizens. Thank you.
That's a beautiful foundation you're building there, and we support you 100%. So Herman Cox, I want to address Herman. Every week he brings his wonderful lettuces that he hydroponically grows through Better Health Technologies, and we appreciate him so much for that. And I want to call J.B. Williams up. Come on up, J.B. Come on. Come on, J.B. Come on.
Okay, I think we got one working mic tonight. Oh. What we've been doing the past couple of weeks is the weather's warmed up here. It's warmed up, it seems, all over the country. Maybe not literally, but figuratively, because it's Dory and I and Cliff, Carson, Miss Julia's not here, Ray, everybody. We are absolutely swamped with opportunities and projects out the kazoo. Many things to do when we're busy from whatever time we get in the morning till 10 or 11 at night, just like Ray says. Now I know what he means, because I go home and continue working. You know, that should be reflected in my pay, don't you think? I mean, it is. Nicely played, sir. So, in fact, we worked through lunch today. Had a good working lunch here while we were meeting with people who are going to distribute, once again, plans for across the country and across the planet. And Ray turned to me and he goes, you know, JB Big buys his clothes in the short and big man's department. And it seemed funny at the time. I don't know why. It was funny. Maybe we were all hopped up on soda. Instead of the tall and thin man's, I'm the short and big man's department. Okay, so we've got many more opportunities than we can work in 40-hour weeks. We work 80 hours, but the other day I read this online on my portal to the world, msnbc.com, and it was an article entitled "Rebel Gardeners Wage Veggie War with Seed Bombs." This is a group called the Horticultores, whose name roughly translates as art farmers. And what these people do in Buenos Aires, they gather together at night, they take seeds, okay? They wrap them up in small mud balls, and then they go to vacant lots in urban areas, people's gardens, parks, and plant these, or just throw them, okay? So that when other people are taking a stroll, okay, or a walk, or are going about their business, they look down and go, huh, carrots, corn, quinoa. How'd this all get there? And I thought that was a very nice way, and it's sort of, you know, there's other people other than the green community and us here and our farmers, and Larry, good to see you. It's been a while. Larry's here. I do that. I've got the mic now. The bishop had the mic. He said what he wanted to. Now I say what I want to. So all over the world and country, as gas prices go up, as instability encroaches upon everybody, both good and bad, there are groups of people like us all over the planet who are interested in eating fresh, eating healthy, and growing their own vegetables and foods. And it makes me feel better than when I realized that we're not the only ones, that there are the Bishop Morrows, Sarge Morrow, the new Fred Morrow, Herman Cox. As I look around the room, there are other people. So come and see us. And somebody stopped by the lab. I'd like to spend more time with people, seeing what they want us to work on and what they want us to do, how they feel about what we're doing here. Is it? We'll make time. We're here till 8 o'clock on Thursday, and then we can always go out to eat afterwards. Right? Right? Yes. Thank you. Okay. I would toss it right to Eric and Stacey, but we'll let Dory do that. Thanks for your time. Come and talk to me sometimes.
I've been watching Eric Stewart and then Stacey S. For about 2 years. They're kind of out there watching this Code Green community. It was just kind of like a stumbling little thing, and all of a sudden, boom, they blossomed. And boy, did they ever. They're out there, they're connecting, they're getting people's attention. They really got my attention, and we want to work with you. We want to build an alliance with you guys and help you, and perhaps you help us. How's that sound? So come on up and give them a hand, everybody.
Hello. Well, I have the mic, so now I can say whatever I want to say.
That's exactly right.
Let me just get rid of this real quick. Like Dory said, my name is Eric Stewart. I started Code Green Community about 2008, so that's about 3 years now, and it's been slowly developing. One of the reasons that I started this, and Stacey kind of joined in the past year, is my concern with the rising oil costs, the rising food costs, all these things that are leading to something that's going on. And what we try and do is we try to inspire and promote and create resilient, sustainable communities. And really that comes through networking. Networking, finding people that are interested in what we're interested in, and connecting and collaborating with them on projects. And we'll go more about what we've been doing over the past 2 years. But the overview of what we want to talk about tonight is going to be about peak oil. It's something that, you hear a lot in the news right now with oil prices rising over $100 a barrel, and just all the riots that are going on in the Middle East. People's mind right now is on oil. And we feel through what we're doing and the vision that we kind of have, we can help communities transition away from fossil fuels and away from oil through the collaboration of the network that we've kind of formed. So the situation, though, it seems very, very complex, but really the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And this came from Bill Mollison, the founder of permaculture, which is permanent agriculture. And he stated this when he was designing systems for food forests and for orchards that could take care of themselves and sustainable organic farms. And I think this is key to what Code Green Community is. I don't know everything, but I know a network of people that know other things. And so by having that network and having that connection, the simple thing is just to have your friends, have that connection. And so what is peak oil? Well, peak oil is a term that can be used for a whole bunch of other things besides peak oil. Peak oil is the peak production of oil. But there's other things peaking around the world as well. There's peak topsoil, there's more than half of the rainforests are gone, a third of the natural gas has been depleted, about a third of the coal. Also our water, our lumber, our fisheries, and our minerals, they're all being depleted at alarmingly rates. And so peak oil refers to the point in time when the production of oil can no longer meet the demand and the production starts to slowly decline year after year because we've just found all the oil, we've tapped all the resources. And there's a time and point and that peak oil will occur, and there's theories that it has occurred in 2006, 2007, and that it could occur over the next 10 years. So peak oil is just a theory right now, but we're living in that peak time where the moment will happen within our lifetimes. Our whole entire global economy works on cheap gasoline right now. When the gasoline rises over $4 a gallon here in America, you start to see businesses slow down, you start to see people drive less, you start to see an economic impact. And so this cheap oil and cheap gasoline has led us to excessive consumption. We have this way of life that for the long run is unsustainable, and it's going to have to transition to something different. Since the 1970s, the production level of oil in America has peaked and declined. And as you can see, as the years gone by, we've actually had to import more and more oil. So for every oil barrel that we discover, we're now consuming anywhere from 3 to 5. It's already the production of oil has already declined in over 60 countries. And at some point within the next decade, like I mentioned, that the global oil production will reach a peak and start declining year after year. So this is a graph of what you have in the front here is the projected discoveries of oil. We actually discovered the major fields of oil in the 1940s and the 1950s. And then the green line is the projected production. And then the last line, the red graph, is actually the demand. So as China and India and all of the other countries that are developing right now, as they start developing, they're going to need to consume more and more oil to create their economies. This was a graph released by the International Energy Agency, and this showcases how over the next 35 years, or excuse me, 25 years, oil production in crude oil, which is like the conventional oil that you would get on land or in near shore, that would be the conventional oils, whereas unconventional would be more like the deep water horizon, or oil that you would have to go way out into the oceans for, or oil that you would have to take out of bitumen, which would be the tar sands up in Canada. Is anyone familiar with the tar sands of Canada?
Bitumen.
Bitumen? Thank
Yep.
you.
We're working on some of that up there.
Yeah? Great.
I was up there, on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, when are you going back, Greg?
Next week.
Next week?
Well, basically, I'll describe the tar sands. Maybe you guys can add to this. The tar sands, there's layers and layers of sand and bitumen. Bitumen underneath that sand. And so what it is, it's a mineral mining expedition. They've excavated miles and miles and acres of this land and just totally strip mined it. And what they do is through a process, they steam it and they heat it up and they put it into a pressure and it squeezes out every last drop out of this clay soil, the bitumen. And so the whole process is really dirty. It takes a lot of water. And it's incredibly expensive. The only way that you can even make a profit out of it is by having oil prices be over $100 a barrel. So in the long run, even if we have all these oil wells developing and the unconventional oil developing, we're still going to see a plateau, and it's still going to be a lot more expensive as years go by with the cost of oil. This is another one that was released a few years ago. As you can see, the drop-off from the existing oil wells to 30 years out or 20 years out, it's a huge drop-off. We may be seeing anywhere from 5 to 7% year after year decline. Just to get a relevant point, I wasn't born back then, but in the 1970s, there was an oil crisis that occurred. And the oil crisis, there was only, I think, about a 5% drop in oil production worldwide, and that caused significant damage to the American economy. So one thing that I like to talk about when it comes to energy is thermodynamics. When you understand what oil is, it's really condensed ancient sunlight. So sunlight shined on an ancient forest 500 million years ago, and it compacted and through a natural process got put into the earth, and slowly over time it became into oil. But what is happening is all the carbon molecules that the trees forms through photosynthesis has condensed extremely a lot. And so this oil is really energy rich. And to get the equivalent, you'd have to have over 91 million solar panels to get the equivalent amount of energy as 1 cubic mile of oil. Or you would need 4 Three Gorges dams. The Three Gorge Dam is a dam in China that they built. It's one of the largest dams in history. Or you would need 104 coal-fired plants, or over 32,000 windmills. So when we're thinking about oil, it's a really valuable commodity because it's so energy rich. And so if we're ever going to transition to something different, it's better to start now than waiting until later on, because you're going to have to build a lot of new things to get away from the system that we've developed. And so that comes to what could happen. What are the future energy scenarios? These are just some ideas, but they kind of add in a couple of other ideas. One is the techno-fantasy, that somehow technology will be able to find some way, somehow, of making abundant amounts of energy, like maybe cold fusion or nuclear reactors that self-reheal their reactor cores. Or the next one is green tech stability, where as the oil declines, we'll slowly be able to plateau, and we'll find the resources or the energy or the technology to make that possible. And the one that I like to think of is that my personal push for in Code Green community is the creative descent. I believe from my own study, and I really emphasize that you should all study peak oil and try and find out for yourself what's right for you. But if oil is going away, instead of trying to fight the process of it going away, why don't we take it as a creative way of saying, well, this way of living is not working, let's creatively create a new way. And so in the creative descent, it's all about creating earth stewardship. How can we really be good stewards to the earth and develop our economy? Because we know that our economy may not grow year after year, but we can still create a local community that will develop a resilience to energy problems in the future. And the last one is a crash. If you know anything about biology, populations never exponentially grow. In populations in the ecosystem, populations go up, then they plateau, then they go down, and then they go up, and there's just a never-ending cycle of ups and downs in a population. So there is a possibility that there could be a crash if the energy that we've been relying on for the past 150 years suddenly starts to go away over time. And so it's in all of our best interest to not see a crash. So if we start to learn now the important things that Green World Path is teaching and what other people are teaching, we can develop a way so that this doesn't occur. So this is a map of the global oil production. All of the countries in yellow are actually post-peak. So for the past several years, they've actually been declining in oil production. And so, I don't know if you can see, but you can see Egypt and Libya. Could there be a connection between that? There's also Mexico, which is having some problems with their government as well. Peak oil is what's been occurring for the past 50 years is these oil-producing countries, they've been dependent on the oil reserves to tax them and tax the corporations. So as these taxes go away, government-supported programs have to go away as well. Just in our own instance, we're having a lot of debt issues in America. Maybe some of these programs won't be sustainable in the long run. So the oil export crisis. Now this goes into a theory called the export land model. And what it basically states is, as the oil production declines over time, the oil demand within the country continues to rise. And so what you end up having is the oil exports go to zero really quickly. And so within 5 years, within 6 years, the oil exports of a major oil exporter could rapidly disappear because their own internal domestic supply continues to rise. And so if you're a country, you're not going to have your own people go starving and not have gasoline. You're going to not export your commodity. So this was taken out of a German military analysis of peak oil. There have been several analyses by military. The United States has a military report on peak oil, and it's just as severe as this one. But in this one, it talks a lot about how in the long term, any country that has oil production is going to have a lot of political power. And it's also going to increase the importance of anyone that can produce any kind of energy. whether it's solar or biofuels or anything. Energy is going to be the currency of the future. That's really what's going to drive any economy and any politics. But it also talks about the market. We live right now in a free market society where we're allowed to sell goods and services on a free market. But if there's a supply crisis with our energy, we could see a sporadic market failures or a relapse into a planned economy, like using rationing or control of production schedules. This is something that governments usually do in response to a crisis. And so it's in our best, this is what the report says in the German military report. This is also continuing from that. It talks about global chain reactions. Like right now, we raise chicken in China, package it in Chile, and then send it to San Francisco so McDonald's can put it in their fryers. And it just doesn't make any sense. So these trade systems that we have created, they're not going to be around in the next 21st, 22nd century. This is a quote from an author, James Howard Kunstler, and it really is poignant. You know, for the past maybe 150 years, we've really been going through an adolescent stage. We've been growing exponentially as a society and as a species, and so now we're going to have to find that this adolescence is ending, and that this peak oil and climate change, this is a way of saying to almost every human being on this planet that we have to change our ways because this way doesn't work. So it's really about moving into adulthood. So we have trouble visualizing decline as positive, but simply reflects the dominance of our prior culture of growth. The real issue of our age is how we make a graceful and ethical descent. That's from David Holmgren, a permaculture teacher. This is actually a geoscientist, Colin Campbell. He wrote in 2003 that the second half of age of oil now dawns and will be marked by a decline of oil, and all depends on it, including financial capital. It heralds the collapse of present financial systems and related political structures. I am speaking of a second Great Depression. Now, I don't want to say that this is where we're headed because it's up to us. It's up to all of us to decide where our economy heads. But if we don't understand the fundamentals of energy and how our society works, we can't. If we don't look at the problems, then we can't decide what the solutions should be. And so one of the things that I learned over the past 2 or 3 years of understanding this and questioning it and really diving deep into what peak oil will mean is I learned about a thing called permaculture, which is permanent agriculture. It's a way of leaving the planet better than we've gotten it. It's really about creating systems that can permanently take care of themselves using biomimicry, understanding the natural cycles that happen in ecology, and creating those into a human-made system so that you could create an edible garden that could last for years and years and take minimal input. So permaculture deals with a lot of things. It primarily deals with gardening, but there's also permaculture designers that have done buildings, have developed tools and technology. There's different people working on different petals of this permaculture flower, and all of them rely on the ethics and design principles that permaculture talks about. Permaculture is really based upon care of the earth, which is rebuilding natural capital, care of the people, look after yourself, your family, and your community, and fair share, which is set limits for consumption, reproduction, and redistribute surplus. Now, it feels socialist when you say that. It feels a lot, but it's not. It's thinking in terms of biology. If you have planted an orange tree or you planted a grapefruit tree, you don't get enough grapefruit for yourself. You get enough grapefruit for you and the entire forest that's around you. And so if you understand nature, nature doesn't grow something just for one thing. It grows it for the whole community that revolves around that production. So a permaculture garden might have aquaponics systems set into it. It might have a food forest where you grow multiple levels of food from shrubs to trees that produce fruit. It also would incorporate moringas and other plants that are perennial. The main emphasis is perennial instead of annuals. Annuals you have to plant year after year, where perennial they last for years and they produce year after year. And so basically it's about thinking about the thermodynamics of gardening and producing food and trying to do it in a more thermodynamically efficient way. And so this leads to transition. Transition Town started when a permaculture designer named Rob Hopkins learned about peak oil, and he wanted to start designing how his community could respond to peak oil. Like, what could you do if this is an occurrence? And so it's about making possible a livelihood in our local bioregion that's worthwhile. And so I'm going to transfer to Stacey, and she's going to talk more about what is transition and what we've been doing over the past 2 or 3 years.
So what time do we have? Keep on. Where did you go?
Your presence at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Or go after if you need
So what is transition? As Eric mentioned, there's a transition handbook that was Rob Hopkins, and a lot of this started in England and Scotland, and there's a Transition USA site that you can check into. There are a lot of different communities and cities in the United States that are undergoing transition, as well as all over the world. So it's a vibrant international grassroots movement that builds community resilience in response to the challenges of peak oil, climate change, and the economic crisis. So it started in the UK. And I want to emphasize community and resilience, and sometimes I tend to use a lot of words that, like, I know the definition of. I know last night I met with a group of women. We're starting a natural women group that we're getting together in St. Petersburg. And I tend to talk really fast, but I also tend to use a lot of words that they were like, slow down, Stacey, explain that for me. So if I say anything like transition or something that you don't understand, you can just feel free to stop me. But resilience means that we want to try to grow food locally, focus on local, healthy, organic foods, and to be able to avoid any kind of impacts from outside of our system or outside of our community. So something like the financial crisis or a hurricane or anything that would impact the system, we want to become more resilient to those outside powers and try to keep everything growing within the system. So this is a quote by Rob Hopkins. I believe that a lower energy, more localized future in which we move from being consumers to being producer consumers, where food, energy, and other essentials are locally produced, local economies are strengthened, and we have learned to live more within our means, is a step towards something extraordinary, not a step away from something inherently irreplaceable. So I know Eric was kind of pointing it out, but we're a debt nation. We consume and consume and consume, so we really need to learn how to not consume and live within our means. In the energy transition, the challenge of global climate change makes a shift from fossil fuels necessary. And it is also inevitable, and we really need, as Eric mentioned earlier, to take a proactive stance on this so that we don't crash and go into that Mad Max world. We want to make sure that we do it gracefully and creatively and make it a positive transition, because we knew what the culture that we're living in now is pretty much unsustainable. More about resiliency. That we want to be self-reliant for the greatest possible number of our needs. And there's going to be a slide later that we really want to show you some of the ways that you can measure whether your community is resilient or not. One of the terms we use a lot is relocalization, obviously bringing things closer to home, local food production, energy, and goods. So to buy locally, and producers like Green World Path for your organic fertilizers and pest control. Local development of currency, government and culture. Reducing consumption, and developing communities that can be working models for other communities. And we do work closely with Sarasota Transition. There's a great guy there called Don Hall, who's very active in transition. He came from Colorado. We also have one up in, how do you say that, Muscanabe or something? There's a woman up there by Gainesville. And there's also one in Jacksonville. These are the resilience indicators that I talked about earlier. So how do you know that your community is resilient? A portion of the proportion of local employment. I know where I live, in Pasco and Hudson. A lot of us take off for the day and go down to Hillsborough or Pinellas to work. But the more people can work locally, the more resilient you'll be. The percentage of essential goods manufactured within a given radius. Local materials used. How about this? The number of 16-year-olds able to grow different varieties of food. And that's one thing. I will talk about what we're doing in Code Green all around the Tampa Bay area. But one of the things that I would like to do is cross-generational learning, especially respect the elders and the knowledge that you have, because we're going to have to be reskilling and learning skills that we've forgotten over the past 40 years or so. And also to include the children. It's very, very important because they're our future, so we want to tap into more elementary schools and high schools. Okay. The ratio of car parking space to productive land use. I know there's Clearwater, I think, is probably one of the most progressive towns that we have, as well as Dunedin, and the things that they're doing for the green community. And one of the things that they put together, I noticed the other day, Clearwater, they took a map, the city did this, it's called Green Print, and they took a map of all the areas that were kind of non-used arable land that could possibly be used for food, forest or gardening throughout the community. So that's something that would be really good to map areas around that. And as JD mentioned earlier, the guerrilla gardening. To just take seed bombs and throw them. We're actually even to work with the local county commissioners or government to start not putting plants that you can't eat. Grass is no good. Sure, lots of trees are good, but trees that provide food are even better. So, again, some more transition recognitions that life with less energy is inevitable. So it's better to plan for it than to be taken by surprise. We want to become more resilient to any kind of outside shocks. We have to act for ourselves, because if we think we're going to rely on anybody else to do this for us, it's just not going to happen. We can't rely on the government. We have to band together as a community, and that's what we're trying to do with Code Green. Is not only, we do have friends here from Weston A. Price, and the women who are coming in a couple of weeks, the aquaponics, Tanya and Gina, they're all part of our community. And we have the St. Pete Permaculture Guild down in St. Petersburg. We're studying a book called Gaia's Garden, which is a beautiful book to learn how to recreate nature and grow abundance in your own yard. And it has to do a lot with what Ray preaches all the time about creating the soil. You feed the be the soil and not necessarily the plants. So the last bullet point here is, by unleashing the collective genius of the community, we can design ways of living that are more enriching, satisfied, and connected. 'Cause right now, I don't know, I feel like we're on the hamster wheel and we're living in bubbles, and we drive to work and we sit in cubicles, and then we drive and we hit the garage door opener, or we pull into our houses, and there's really no sense of community. Your garage doors are always the front of the house. And so, is that really the type of world that we want to live in? Do we want to send our children to daycare in the morning, every day, and then go work a few jobs, and then when our parents get older, put them in a nursing home? Yeah, it's really sad. It's not the type of world that we want to live in. So this is our opportunity to rethink that. And some of the core principles of transition are visioning. So we want to envision the type of world that we really want. We want to include everybody, like I said, cross generations, everyone. Right now, I know Eric started this Code Green 3 years ago, but we're pretty much still in the awareness raising stage. It takes a lot of time and effort to get people not only to notice, but then to try to get people to act in a community and volunteer when everybody's still caught on the hamster wheel. It's kind of a tough thing. We talked about resilience. We talked a little bit about reskilling. Definitely a local focus. I don't want my food coming 1,500 miles away all the time, and at some point it's not going to be possible even. There are going to be a lot of psychological insights, and to me that means an inner transition. So we really have to think about, do we need all that stuff, or is that just a want? And the stuff that we want, are you really happy with it? Or, yeah, what is your value? And you know, I know people who pay to store things in storage units. I mean, yeah, more stuff that isn't making you happy, and if it's there for 6 months or more, you don't need it anymore. So we really need to think and have an inner transition. I have friends who, still with the pesticides and the fertilizers and things like that, or they have to have the best coffee pot or the best car or the best whatever, go on the nicest vacations. But they have to work really hard for that and live in their little bubble on the hamster wheel. A lot of this is kind of redundant from what we were looking at before. But one of the things that we're looking to do in Code Green Community is to develop an energy descent plan, and there are specific rules for that, and there are plans already out there. I'm sorry?
Book behind you.
Do you want to say
Sure. Well, this is actually a book from Transition Topness, the first transition town. And what they do is they kind of lay out, like, over the next 30 years, what they can do as a community, and drop the notes. And they lay out, like, this year we're going to work on localizing our food. We're going to set up this many community gardens, or this many community orchards, or we're going to set up a program. And they kind of layer it out as a descent action plan that they can work on, and they can give tasks to different people to work on what's best for them.
Okay, so the first thing we would do is assess the present situation so that you have a benchmark to which to judge anything that you accomplish. Formulate a vision. And one of the things that we do, and I'm still trying to get used to this too, because I'm from corporate America, and you have people who lead and people who follow. But the one thing that we're experiencing more in this community is something called open space, where everybody not everybody's going to garden, not everybody likes to garden. And actually, when Eric was talking about permaculture, it's not just plants. I mean, there's financial permaculture. There are a whole bunch of different things in permaculture that you can work towards. So if that's your interest, then you can be the specialist in that area and drive that and have other people work with you in that. So it's not a linear thinking or leadership. It's totally different. So that's something that we're doing. If you ever hear open space, has anybody ever done open space before or worked in open space before? It's a totally different kind of leadership model, and it's a more creative way to do things. So the bottom area, it's a little difficult to see, the orange, is local communities are encouraged to form a vision for their community and to develop a detailed plan of action that will enable them to move in a direction of this vision and then to develop practical projects to implement this plan. So we want to envision a positive future, so not have the doom and gloom scenario that some people might think, where production and consumption occur closer to home, where long and fragile supply chains that are vulnerable to surges in oil prices and economic volatility have been replaced by interconnected local networks, where the total amount of energy consumed by the businesses and citizens is dramatically less than current unsustainable levels. So what can you do? We're going to talk about that inner transition. You want to shift in your consciousness, take some steps now, practice permaculture, and some of the things you can do are raise awareness. And there are some more slides here, but I do want to show we are trying to do that through movies. We do a lot of movies. I know Eric's been doing them at the Newport Richie Library. Share resources, embrace community, because you know what, to do it by yourself isn't fun, but you can get a whole lot more done if you have other people helping you. And prepare by reskilling, plan for restricted access to food, water, and energy. Think smaller is better. You don't always have to grow. I think that's part of our culture right now too, is we always have to be bigger, we always have to get more, we always have to be smarter and better than everybody else. But again, I don't know that that's really a cause for happiness. We want to be human beings instead of human havings or humans having to do all the time. Understand the difference between what you want and what you have. You can go into voluntary simplicity. Consider consumption and obsession with stuff. We kind of talked about that. Stop living on debt. That's another thing. If you're indebted and you keep wanting to buy and put things on your credit card all the time, you're going to be stuck on that hamster wheel and indebted to the banks, and your quality of life isn't going to be as good as if maybe you didn't need all that stuff that I know. If you buy toys and you just want to throw them out, right? And sometimes they have more fun with the box that it came in anyway. You want to connect with and honor nature, because she's the one who provides, and if you don't honor her, she's not going to give you what you need to survive. Meet your neighbors and create a sense of community, and help those less fortunate. And that's one of the things that I did as in the Hudson transition. I started a community garden at the Angelus. I don't know if you've heard of the Angelus, but it's a residence for cerebral palsy. I want to say children, but they're not children anymore. I think that they've been in the program for 20 years or more. But they're severely handicapped in wheelchairs. And so what we did was we made a permablitz there, which is another word maybe you haven't heard of. How many people have heard of permablitz? A permablitz is when you get your community together to blitz a garden and just make a garden in somebody's house, or like the Angelus. And we just got loads of mulch delivered, and we shoveled it all up, and we got seaweed, tons of seaweed, and horse manure, and whatever biomass we could get our hands on, leaves and mulch. And we put it all together, and we got a lot of plants donated to us from an organic blueberry farm in Surftown, a Becky's DNS Blueberry. Lowe's even donated to us. I mean, a lot of people were very, very willing to help, and I think to me that was the most important thing that I got out of it, was the sense of everybody who was so willing to help. So in a food crisis, where would you rather live? Seriously, with the grass or with the food? and the garage is in the front, and the car out front. And where would you rather work? Would you rather work in a cubicle with fluorescent lights, or staring at the electromagnetic chaos, or would you rather meet your friends and make homemade soaps and can we redefine the American dream with the garbage and the pills, and as I mentioned earlier, with the kids in daycare and the elderly by themselves. So this is something I really thought was pretty interesting, because, we can sit here and we can read about this and we can talk about it all we want, but if you don't actually take personal action, you're not going to realize what valuable lessons you can learn out of it. So there's this woman, Anna, and she and her husband have been blogging on Code Green Community, so that's our website is www.codegreencommunity.org. And what she decided was, instead of making a New Year's resolution, she took for each month of the year a different goal that they were going to make for the whole family, and they all had to commit to it, and they all sat down at the beginning of the year and decided which things they were going to free themselves of, or what types of things they were going to do. So in here, January, they said no processed food. It all had to be unprocessed, or it had to take no more than 2 steps in processing. And then February was no spending, and it's pretty funny. If you go to the website and read it, she's a really good writer. And we're all volunteers. Nobody's getting paid for this or anything. I think her husband wanted to go to the rifle range or something, and it was going to cost about $30, $35. So they had to barter for the money to go. His best friend decided he was going to pay for it. And the amount of food that they had to take out of the refrigerator, like 3 breasts of chicken, 2 lamb legs, all this food that was like 4 dinners for the whole family, so that he could go to the rifle range. So you start to change your perspective on what's really important. So in March, they're going to only have 1 appliance on the grid. I'll be interested to see how that goes. But you can see some of the other things: buses, bikes, and feet. Oh my, that's it. In April, no plastic brought in the house. Seriously, think about that. Alternative income, volunteering, alternative cooking. They're going to really actually break out. I have a solar oven. I've never ever used it, so that's something that's going to force you to break it out. Go ahead and use your solar oven. Primitive skills. Local products and shops only, and she's wondering if ABC Liquor counts as local. And no garbage, nothing goes in the dumpster in November. And then in December, only the entertainment that they create for themselves. So I think those are pretty special. And if you read her insight and the things that she learns while they're going through this, it's pretty heartwarming.
Question: How do we access her website?
Oh, it's on Code Green Community. So, yeah. So some of the visible projects that we're developing right now, as I mentioned, we started the Angelus. There's also the Faith House down in St. Petersburg, and they're putting a food garden in there. They have a food garden there, and right there Neil's building a pond for tilapia. Did you want to say something?
I just want to say that not all of these are our projects. There are other groups, but with our community, you can connect with them and help them at their projects throughout the Tampa Bay area.
Mm-hmm. And then the Roosevelt is in Ybor City, and they're making that an example, and they're going to have learning, education, and things like that at the Roosevelt. This is something that actually just finished last night. We tried to do a bioregional showing of the film Home by Jan Arthus Bertrand. So Eric showed it at the Newport Ritchie Library. We had the Clearwater UU Church. I showed it at the Hudson Library. We had so many different organizations that wanted. The City of Dunedin cooperated with us, St. Petersburg College, West Pasco Habitat for Humanity, we have a whole bunch of organizations, because we wanted to try to coordinate a group effort or a regional effort. And it worked really well. Also, we put together a map. We're trying to start resource mapping. So one of the things is, where are the local farmers markets? And we're going to continue to try to map local resources. And we want to foster community sharing of food and skills and resources for food security. So here we talk again about the permacultures, community gardens, food forests, and then the guerrilla gardening tactics. Raising awareness. We want to have booths at different green events. Actually, Eric, he has a blog talk radio that he does every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. with a different type of topic. We have lots of friends in the community that are beekeepers, and they have kefir classes. Does anybody know what kefir is? Kefir? Like, it's a natural soda that's made of living organisms that have like more than 40 strains of probiotics. And Dakota actually came with me to a kefir making class, and now he likes to drink that. I'm not going to say it's going to totally take over soda, but at least it's healthier for him, and he does like it. Some other things that we're working on are bartering groups. And we also actually just started a public policy, political action group on Code Green, so that we can, Sarasota just passed a law that allowed them to have chickens in the urban area because they weren't able to do that. So what we want to do is make Code Green a resource where any kind of legislation that gets passed, we can kind of document that so that if somebody else has to pass it, it's all in one spot. Yeah. Developing a local currency. I personally don't know much about that, and you really don't want me talking about money, do you? But there's this wonderful woman, Marie Nelson, down in St. Petersburg, who's really taking this seriously. She's the financial lady. And right now she's actually doing what is it? Yeah, a time bank. So we can start sharing time, and we barter time. I put an hour in for Dory, and then Dory wants to put an hour in, and we can keep track of that. So it's kind of like a money without thinking about money. So local transportation, great reskilling, so that we can relearn some of the skills that our grandparents had, and to reverse the great de-skilling of the last 40 years. And give people a powerful realization that they do have the ability to solve their own problems. And I know one of the things that Eric and I were talking about before we came here is psychologically, if you just sat there and watched all the videos on YouTube or read all the bad news, I mean, it could be pretty draining for you. So if you can empower yourself knowing that you'll be able to provide for yourself and your family, if you had to, then that's pretty powerful. And we did talk about honoring and engaging the elders for their wisdom and their experience. And then this is our cheerful disclaimer. Transition is a social experiment on a massive scale. We don't know if it's going to work. We're all kind of neophytes at this, but we're willing to give it a try. If we wait for the government, it'll be too little, too late. If we act as individuals, it'll be too little. But if we can band together and work as communities, it might be just enough, just in time. And that's all we have for you today. So I just wanted to let you know that if you want it, thank you. You can join the Code community, and then you all else out there, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have questions? Yes.
It's a stupid question. Did you rinse your seaweed there on site, or did it come already prepared?
Actually, we didn't rinse it at all. We just put it right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a good question.
Well, it's hard to get, and it takes a lot of fuel to go and get it. So when you're home, then we worry about how much water you're using to rinse it and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's a good thing, because, again, remember how I said if you read it in a book, that's one thing, but when you actually do it, that's another thing. I mean, I thought seaweed, okay, so I'm going to put like this much seaweed and just scatter it around, and then he just piles it up this high. And I thought, you put that much? Seriously?
Yeah.
You do, you put a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
tons of it.
I actually learned that from Jim Kowaleski. He's a market gardener in Newport Richey. He gardens with using seaweed regularly, and he just said, just put it on there. And so I kind of got that from him.
Great.
So it's all experimentation.
I have a one suggestion. After you put the seaweed on, put some green tank total on it, and total will help break the seaweed down faster. Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, I agree with everything you're doing here and everything else. And matter of fact, I'm in the process myself of doing a lot of these things, you know. But there's one question I do have to have to you.
Sure.
As you were talking before about, are we going to give up on oil exploration now, or what? Or is it? Well, what about the shale oil that they're talking about out west? Can you give me any information on that?
Well, shale oil, what they're doing to I used to own ExxonMobil stocks, so oil has always been an interest of mine. And from my understanding, the shale oil, they're doing horizontal drilling, and they're fracking, which means they're putting chemicals and water and shoving it in there, and out of that they'll get oil. And right now in America, we have a lot of energy resources. I mean, we're a Saudi Arabia of natural gas.
That's what I understand. I mean, there's more shale oil out there, they claim, than there are in Saudi Arabia. So.
Well, the problem with the shale oil is you have to drill literally thousands and thousands of wells. You can't just put one well and get all that oil. You have to constantly, I didn't really go over it in my slide, I have more in depth about this. The energy invested versus the energy returned is not very efficient. So you can invest all the money, all the energy into the shale, but as soon as you do, you're going to have to reuse that energy to build new wells and new pipes to tap the other resources. So it's not a very economical way to get oil compared to the Saudi Arabia, where you could put a straw in the sand and out pops oil. Sort of like the idea of Beverly Hillbillies when he went out rabbit shooting and he shot the well and it just started gushing. Well, that's how it used to be in America.
Yeah, but the thing is, the need, the necessity for having it, you can throw economics out the window if you have to have it, you know. I mean, whatever it takes to get it, you know, we'll have to adjust to that.
We can get it. Like, we have the energy. 2/3, it's not really half of the oil is gone. It's really closer to 2/3 of the oil is gone. But 1/3, we don't have the technology to get. It's really deep in the ocean, or it's in inhospitable areas, or we just don't have the technology to get it. But the other third, or roughly half that we can get, it's expensive to get to. The tar sands are not cheap. The shale oil is not cheap. Yeah. Bitumen. Bitumen is a bitch to get to.
But I agree with all you've done up here, and I'm in the process of doing things like it, like aquaculture. You know, I'm going to start growing tilapia, and I'm going to raise beds and stuff like that. I agree with what you're doing here, but it seems like we're kind of digressing. You know, if we're in a mode of going backwards instead of forward, you know, in some cases.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Is it one last question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
If you want to learn some of these things, you know, is there outlets for learning, like say solar or the aquaponics or things like that people are interested in learning? Do you have is that on your website or?
I can't pull it up I don't think I could pull it up, but what we have available on our website is, it's all open source. Every single member can post an event, post a blog, post photos, post videos. It's very open source. We've got over 200 videos. We have over 300 blogs. I mean, there's people that are actively on this thing. And so one of the events, on the event calendar, there's actually one for aquaponics that the next presenters next week from Green World Acres?
Green Acres.
Green Acres.
Green Acres Aquaponics.
So it's really a network. It's not so much what we can teach, it's what other people in the network can teach you.
So in return, if we got on the network, we have stuff to offer, we can also offer.
Yeah. Yeah, you can post an event and set up an event, or you can ask people or if you want to find out, we have a little part of it that deals with online learning. Like we have a section that talks about edible gardening in Florida specifically, because it's really hard to find specifically Florida information. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the website. Yeah, thank you.
Because we're all kind of put together to do that here. And I've had the privilege to be invited to join Rotary. Terry, stand up. This is Terry Weaver. She's a wonderful person in the community, and she really gets out there and tells people. She's a great networker. If you want a network on your side, there's Terry Weaver. Just make sure you get to know her. She's been a real good friend to me with through the Rotary and through networking through the community here. And one of the things that we're going to be working is internationally, also with the Rotary Club, and teaching people in Haiti the value of food and clean water, and teaching them how to grow sustainable, build the soil up where it needs to be. So, with that said, we'll also have J.B. Williams going to be talking tonight right after me, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll have Eric and Stacey come up. I'll briefly go over our classes coming up so that you can put this in your memory bank. If you don't have our information sent to you on a weekly basis about the upcoming classes, let us know. Put it up there. Do you see where, wave your hand up. Okay, you see that podium is? Just go ahead and sign your name with your email address, and we'll make sure that you get a blast out to our upcoming classes. March 3rd, Gina Cavallero and Tanya Peck from the Green Acre Aquaponics Farm. They'll be talking about how to grow foods and fish through aquaponic gardens. They'll teach eco-friendly ways. Thanks, Carson. I think we should have had a dry run before we did this. How to harvest and grow your own tilapia and your own vegetables through aquaponic methods. Bill Sellers, the president of the Cattlemen's Association, Hernando chapter, and also he's part of the state chapter. He'll be here talking about the advantages of being part of the Cattlemen's Association, what's going on with the youth through the Cattlemen's Association, and upcoming agenda. And Paul Bocard, he's a farmer and entrepreneur. He's going to be talking about growing and harvesting moringa, the wonderful tree. Has anybody ever heard of that? Okay. There's a lot of benefits to moringa. They'll talk about that. Talk about highly mineralized food. This is one of the ways to do it. A very fast-growing food source and oil source. So we'll talk about that and harvesting and how to grow it. Paul Hawk, a good friend of Ray Nielsen's and Sherry Nielsen's. He's a mechanical engineer and a professional engineer with 37 years experience in electrical power. He's going to be talking about biofuels in the industry and upcoming, and what's going on currently and where we are in future trends. So that'll be an interesting class as well. Jane Maxwell, Composting Your Garden. She'll be talking about composting. That'll be at the end of the month on March 31st. It's very necessary to compost. That's going to build micronutrients into your soil, adding worms, building beneficial fungus, all the good things that are starting at your compost pile. That's how you start building your soil. And of course with Greenwood Pack products. How to do a plug too. So, Bishop, would you like to come on up? This is Bishop Marrow. He's going to be talking about Good Samaritan Church. He's going to give a quick synopsis of what the good works that they're doing through community.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bishop Douglas Mora, and I have with me, I think most of you met my brother Clarence. My other brother Fred is also in the audience back there. We're the Good Samaritan Christian Fellowship Church out in Munden Hill, and what we are doing, we have the farm starting off the WPA route, and the farm is a hydroponic farm. And the mission of the farm is we are to grow vegetables and herbs and other things hydroponically as well as organically. And what we're doing, we are endeavoring to provide a job for folk that have been formerly incarcerated, but they get out of jail, and more times than not, they can't find employment. So what we're going to do for the non-violent former offenders is provide a way for them to get back into mainstream society. And by doing that, we'll have a job, a transition job for them, so that we'll teach them how to grow hydroponically and organically, as well as other methods in the farming area. And what our main theme is using the farm and growing off the grid as well. We're going to have water harvesting on the farm that we have cisterns and capturing water out of the greenhouse, and solar panels as well, providing energy for the greenhouse operation as well, and the irrigation system. So we'll be teaching all those techniques. We've been in the process of getting information, getting contacts about 3 years now, and we have the problem.
Speaking tonight from Code Green Community. Boy, they're doing a great job, and I'll give an introduction right before we bring them up. We're really pleased to have them tonight. We also will have our new calendar coming out. We'll go through that as well. But I want to just touch on very slightly that we have been very blessed in this company. We've had a lot of interest internationally. Pakistan, India, Mexico, Canada, all over the world wanting to know how to grow sustainable soils and food. Why? Because in reality, we know that we have a fragile system. We have 3 days supply of food. It used to be about 45 years ago, 3 months of food. Now we're down to 3 days. If you're in the city, you're out of luck. If you're country people like we are, you can grow your own. If you're urban people, we'll teach you how to grow. So there's not enough clean water. There's not enough good food. Most of our cancers now, they're streaming right back to not enough nutrient in our food, not enough minerals in our food. So one of our missions here at Greenwell Path is to teach as many people as we can in a short amount of time